In Panama, a single photograph has thrown the world into chaos. It began with an image. Not a blurry UFO, not a rumor passed around forums, but a clear, undeniable photo. Several figures, all of them dressed in full yellow hazmat suits, masks, breathing gear, gloves sealed at the wrists, standing silently at the entrance of a building. At first it seemed ordinary, routine even, but then someone remembered where it had been taken. Panama, the very same country where Chin had claimed to discover something impossible. A meteorite, unlike any ever seen before. And inside that meteorite, a substance, a living, shifting black liquid. Chin called it the entity, the black goo. His videos had already shocked hundreds of thousands online. Inside a safe under a camera's unblinking eye, the goo seemed to move. It pulsed. It stretched. Some swore they saw it crawling. Alive. For weeks, debate raged. Was Chin telling the truth? Had he discovered life from beyond Earth? Or was it a trick? A hoax? Skeptics dismissed him. But then came the photograph. Hazmat teams in Panama. The same region, the same timeline, the same mystery. Coincidence or confirmation? The internet exploded. Memes, theories, conspiracies. Some circled the suits, zooming into every pixel. Others pointed at the shadows in the background. Everyone was desperate for proof. And slowly, three possibilities emerged. One group believed the truth was simple. Authorities, maybe even international ones, were moving to take Chin's discovery, to confiscate the meteorite and hide it from the world. Another group argued the goo wasn't alive at all, but something worse: technology, nanotech, a material so advanced it could rewrite science. And the hazmat teams weren't there to protect us. They were there to protect it. And then there were the skeptics. For them, the suits were real. But the story, a carefully staged illusion. Soon, the goo would vanish. The meteorite would disappear, and nothing more would ever be said. History repeating itself, just like Roswell. What began as a strange video on Chin's channel has now become a worldwide mystery. The question is no longer, is the goo real? The question is, who wants it? The photograph was only the beginning. Within days, new images surfaced, different locations, same yellow hazmat suits, same sealed gloves, same silent stance. But this time, the background was different. Not a building, a remote clearing, jungle brush, satellite towers faintly visible in the haze. To the online community following Chin, this was no longer an isolated event. It was a pattern, and patterns meant coordination. Why were these teams moving so quickly? Why Panama? Why now? On forums and video platforms, the theories multiplied like wildfire. Maps appeared. Pins marked sightings. Timelines were drawn, connecting every photograph to Chin's uploads. And with each new post, the tension built. Some swore they had seen unmarked vehicles at night. Black SUVs, no plates, headlights off, crawling through rural roads. Others claimed to hear helicopters overhead, flying low, no navigation lights. And then came Chin's next video, his hands visibly shaking as he unlocked the safe. The black substance inside was no longer still. It glimmered under the dim light like liquid metal. For the first time since this story began, silence fell on his channel. Stay vigilant. If anything happens, you'll know why. And yet, outside of social media, the mainstream press stayed quiet. Those who believed the official narrative, that this was nothing but an environmental cleanup or a staged hoax, pointed to the lack of news coverage as proof. They saw the silence as confirmation. Because to them, silence was never neutral. Was this black goo a biological entity? A dormant life form awakened by impact? Or was it something manufactured? Every angle felt more dangerous than the last. If it was alive, it could spread. If it was technology, it could change everything. And still, the yellow suits moved across Panama like ghosts. Every photograph darker, grainier than the last. One question began to echo across the internet. If this isn't real, Why are they acting like it is? That first photograph? It was just the beginning. Within days, new images started to surface. Different locations, but always the same figures in those bright yellow hazmat suits, the same sealed gloves, the same unnerving, silent stance. But this time, the background wasn't a building. It was a remote clearing, dense jungle brush, and if you looked closely, you could just make out satellite towers, faint in the haze. To the online community that had been glued to Chin's every post, this wasn't just another weird photo. It was a pattern, and patterns mean coordination. It means something bigger is going on. The questions started flying. Why were these teams moving so fast? Why Panama, of all places? And why right now? On forums and video platforms, the theories just exploded, multiplying like wildfire. People started creating maps, dropping pins on every new sighting. Timelines were drawn up, connecting every single photograph back to Chin's original uploads. And with each new post, you could feel the tension ratcheting up, getting tighter and tighter. It was electric. Then came the eyewitness accounts. Some swore they had seen unmarked vehicles roaming at night. Black SUVs, no license plates, headlights off, just crawling slowly through rural roads. Others claimed they were hearing helicopters overhead, flying way too low with no navigation lights. It was like a ghost fleet descending on the area. The big questions on everyone's mind were, what was being moved? What was being hidden? And then, Chin dropped his next video. It was a gut punch. His hands were visibly shaking as he unlocked that safe. The black substance he had shown us before. It wasn't still anymore. It was moving. It writhed and seemed to shimmer under the dim light, almost like liquid metal. It looked alive. He leaned in close to the camera, and his voice was just a raw whisper. They're here. And then, nothing. The footage just cut off. No outro, no explanation, just black screen. The comment section went into a complete meltdown. Where is Chin? Why did the video end like that? Is he safe? The flood of concern was overwhelming, and for the first time since this whole insane story began, there was just silence on his channel. No new posts, no updates, just a single chilling pinned comment. Stay vigilant. If anything happens, you'll know why. It felt like a final message, and yet outside of our corner of the internet, the mainstream press was completely quiet. No headlines, no breaking news banners, just whispers, if that. Those who believed the official narrative, the people saying this was all just some environmental cleanup or an elaborate online hoax, they pointed to the lack of news coverage as proof. See? If it was real, it'd be on the news. But for those who didn't buy that, for those of us who had been following every twist and turn, we saw the media silence as the ultimate confirmation. Because to us, silence isn't neutral. Silence is a weapon. It's how you control a story. Meanwhile, the debate online shifted. We weren't just asking what is it anymore. The questions got more specific, more terrifying. Was this black goo a biological entity? Some kind of dormant life form that had been awakened by whatever impact happened? Or was it something manufactured? Nanotechnology, something deliberately seeded. Every single theory felt more dangerous than the last, because if it was alive, it could spread. It could be a pandemic waiting to happen. But if it was technology, it could change everything we know about science, about power, about control. And all the while, the yellow suits kept moving across Panama like ghosts, unlabeled, unannounced. Every new photograph that leaked out was darker, grainier, more menacing than the one before. It was like watching a shadow grow. An unsettling feeling started to echo across the internet, a question that cut through all the noise and all the theories. If this isn't real, why are they acting like it is? The mystery had broken free from the screen. It was no longer just a collection of pixels and posts. It was now walking around in broad daylight, shrouded in yellow suits. And whatever it was, a living organism or a piece of alien artifact, it was clear that someone, some powerful group, was absolutely determined to control it. The game had changed, and we were all just watching, waiting for the next move. Thank you for watching. If you have any theories or have seen anything, share it in the comments below. This story is bigger than any one of us and we need to piece it together. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what happens next. Stay safe and stay vigilant. The world held its breath, waiting for Chin's return. But days turned into weeks, and there was nothing. His channel, once a beacon of thrilling discovery, was now frozen in time. No new uploads, no community posts, not even a single reply to the tidal wave of comments from his worried followers. The black goo, the mysterious safe, the unsettling photographs of figures in hazmat suits. It all just stopped. And in that deafening silence, the internet speculation grew louder than ever before. Whispers turned into theories. Some were convinced that Chin had been silenced, that the very teams in those yellow suits hadn't just come for the meteorite, but for him as well. They argued that he'd uncovered something too big, something the world wasn't supposed to see. Others painted a different picture. Chin in hiding, forced underground after finally realizing the immense danger he was in. They pointed to his last cryptic message, "Stay vigilant," as proof. It wasn't just a sign-off, it was a warning. A desperate signal that he knew they were coming for him. The debate raged, but with no word from the man himself, it was all just guesswork. But then, just as the trail seemed to go cold, something completely unexpected happened. A new video surfaced. It wasn't on his official channel, which was still dormant. Instead, it appeared on a small, obscure forum, almost hidden from view. The footage was raw, shaky, and looked like it had been shot in a desperate hurry. The lighting was terrible, and the audio was distorted, filled with static and a low hum that made your teeth ache. It was chaotic, unprofessional, and utterly terrifying. And yet, there it was, unmistakably, the safe, and inside it, the black goo. But this time, something was different. Something had changed. This time, it wasn't contained. The heavy steel door of the safe was slightly ajar, as if it had been forced open from the inside. The strange, liquid metal substance was no longer resting passively at the bottom. It had spread, clinging to the edges of the steel frame, stretching outward like an oil slick with a mind of its own. The camera operator, whoever they were, pushed closer, their hand trembling. The focus shifted, and for a split second, the lens caught something impossible. A thin black tendril no thicker than a wire was rising from the main mass. It swayed slowly, deliberately, as if it were searching, feeling the air, tasting its new environment. It was a moment of pure, undiluted nightmare fuel. The clip ended as abruptly as it began. No explanation, no voiceover, no context, just the horrifying image of this unknown entity, this thing, beginning its escape from its prison. Within hours, the video went viral. It was downloaded, mirrored, and reposted across every corner of the internet. It was everywhere. But with the virality came the skeptics. They pointed to the poor quality, the distorted audio, the convenient timing. "It's a fake," they declared. "A clever deepfake. Just another publicity stunt to keep the hype alive." And maybe they were right. It was grainy, it was chaotic, it was almost too perfect in its imperfection. And yet, there was something that was impossible to ignore: the timing. In the very same week that this new, disturbing video appeared, a fresh wave of hazmat sightings was reported all across Panama. But this time, it wasn't just confined to the area around Chin's last known location. The reports were spreading. There were sightings in neighboring Colombia, then in Costa Rica. Then, whispers of strange activity reaching as far as the Caribbean islands. It was as if the story was leaking out, crossing borders, just like the substance in the video. Theories exploded across forums and social media, each one more alarming than the last. Was the entity moving? Had it been released, either intentionally or by accident? Were these hazmat teams pursuing it, desperately trying to get it back in the box? Or were they just trying to contain the fallout from its escape, cleaning up a mess that was already spiraling out of control? The questions were endless, and the answers were nowhere to be found. Among the hundreds of theories, one stood out as the most chilling. It was posted anonymously by someone claiming to be a former biologist specializing in exotic materials. They claimed the black goo resembled a type of self-replicating biomaterial they'd only seen in theoretical papers. It wasn't alive in the way we understand life. It didn't breathe, it didn't eat, but it wasn't entirely inert either. It was something in between, a programmable matter that could learn, adapt, and, most terrifyingly, copy itself. If that theory was true, it would explain everything. It would explain the extreme secrecy, the hazmat suits, the desperate rush to contain it from the very beginning. Because if this material could replicate itself, if every tiny piece could grow into a new whole, then it wasn't just a physical object anymore. It was an infection. And that meant time was no longer on our side. Every second that passed was another second it had to spread, to multiply, to grow beyond anyone's control. The internet fractured. You had the believers, who saw the leaked video and the hazmat sightings as undeniable proof. You had the skeptics who demanded harder evidence and called it all an elaborate online game. You had the doomsayers, who were already preparing for the end of the world, and the hopefuls, who clung to the idea that this was a gateway to some incredible new technology. But all of them, from the most cynical skeptic to the most fervent believer, shared one thing in common. They couldn't look away. Every new update, every grainy rumor, every blurry photograph was downloaded and dissected frame by frame. People were zooming in, enhancing audio, cross-referencing locations, all as if decoding the mystery would somehow change the outcome. It was a global obsession. And through it all, the man at the center of the storm, Chin, remained completely silent. His disappearance had become the main event. His absence was the fuel that kept the fire burning hotter and hotter. Because that's the thing about a great mystery. When the person at the heart of it all vanishes without a trace, it doesn't close the book. It just makes you feel like the final terrifying chapter is inevitable. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. The story is clearly far from over. What do you think is happening? Let me know your theories down in the comments. And if you want to stay on top of this mystery as it unfolds, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss what comes next. Stay safe and stay vigilant. The silence didn't last long, because when governments stay quiet, the world finds its own answers. In the days following Chin's disappearance, new reports began surfacing. Not from Panama this time, but from far beyond. First, it was the fishermen off the coast of Costa Rica. They claimed their radios went haywire in the middle of the night. Static, distortions, and then a sound. Not a voice, not words, but a low, humming tone, almost like a heartbeat. And when they looked out across the dark waters, they swore they saw a glow rising beneath the surface, a green shimmer pulsing in rhythm with the sound. Then came the pilots. Civilian aircraft approaching Panama City reported brief blackouts in their instruments. Entire navigation systems would just blink out, only to return seconds later, as if nothing had happened. But during those seconds, some pilots claimed to have seen shapes moving in the clouds, shadows, vast, silent. And then, the locals. Videos began spreading like wildfire on TikTok and Instagram, small villages near the jungle showing animals behaving strangely, dogs refusing to enter certain areas, birds circling endlessly, goats screaming through the night as if sensing something we couldn't. For believers, this was proof. The entity wasn't just real, it was active, spreading, maybe even calling out to something else. But skeptics were quick to point to natural causes, magnetic storms, geological shifts, even elaborate hoaxes fueled by viral attention. They argued that in the age of deepfakes and digital manipulation, you couldn't trust anything you saw online. Yet, one detail couldn't be so easily dismissed: electromagnetic interference. Across Panama, Costa Rica, and even northern Colombia, ordinary people began reporting bizarre failures in everyday devices. Phones would drop calls in areas with perfect reception. Compasses would spin uselessly. Car engines would stall without any warning, only to start up again minutes later as if nothing was wrong. Even local news stations, hesitant to touch the main story, quietly admitted that Unexplained power fluctuations had hit multiple districts. This wasn't a blurry video. This was happening to people's cars, their phones, their homes. Theories multiplied. Some said the entity was trying to communicate, sending out a signal we didn't have the technology to understand. Others feared it was feeding, absorbing energy from our grid the way a living creature absorbs food. Imagine something that doesn't eat flesh or plants, but electricity itself, draining the lifeblood of our modern world. And in the background, whispers grew louder. Whispers of classified satellite data, of intercepted signals. Chatter among amateur radio operators and independent researchers pointed to a possible link between the original meteorite and powerful electromagnetic bursts recorded in low Earth orbit. There was no concrete proof, no official confirmation. But the rumors just wouldn't die. They spread through forums and encrypted chats, painting a picture far more terrifying than any government statement. Then, they were seen again. The hazmat teams. This time, they weren't combing through a crash site in broad daylight. They were spotted in convoys, moving only at night, down rural, unlit roads. Locals described large trucks covered in heavy tarps, flanked by black, unmarked vehicles and guarded by men in dark uniforms with no flags, no insignia. Just silent, intimidating figures ensuring no one got too close. Where were they taking the material they had collected? What had they already found? And most importantly, what were they preparing for? Because as the world argued online, something much bigger was brewing behind closed doors. This wasn't just a Panamanian issue anymore. This wasn't just a Central American anomaly. This had gone global. For the first time, whispers of a coordinated international response began to surface. Leaks from anonymous sources suggested NATO analysts were being briefed on unexplained aerial and ground-level anomalies. Military-grade aircraft were quietly deployed to bases around the world. Advanced radar stations were put on high alert, their operators tasked with looking for, well, no one knew what exactly. Just that they would know it when they saw it. But nothing was said publicly, not a word. The official channels remained silent. The press conferences never happened. The world was told to carry on as normal, even as the signs pointed to anything but normal. And so the silence continued. But now it was different. This wasn't the silence of ignorance or confusion. This sounded like preparation. It felt calculated. It was the kind of heavy, tense silence you hear in the moments before a dam breaks. The quiet before the storm. The deep breath before the scream. Thank you for joining me on this deep dive. The story is far from over. If you want to follow where this leads, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. I'll be tracking every lead, every whisper, every piece of data to find out what's really going on. Stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. But just when we thought we had a handle on the story, something new pushed it from a mystery into pure chaos. Eyewitness footage. It started with a shaky video, uploaded by a teenager in Panama City. It showed a streetlight flickering violently, buzzing, pulsing with an erratic energy before it suddenly burst, plunging the street into darkness. As the phone's camera struggled to adjust to the low light, for just a fraction of a second, a shape could be seen in the reflection of a car window. It wasn't a man. It wasn't a machine. It was something low to the ground, crawling, almost like liquid metal climbing against the pull of gravity. The clip went viral instantly. Skeptics flooded the comments, calling it an obvious fake, a clever CGI trick. But believers swore it was the entity, and it was out of containment. The debate was fierce, but it didn't stop there. Within hours, more videos started appearing, painting a far more disturbing picture. One came from a remote farm in Costa Rica. A group of farmers were filming their cattle, all of them refusing to cross a field. They were herded together in a state of pure panic, their eyes wide, reflecting an unnatural, eerie green light under the moonlight. The farmers were baffled, their voices laced with confusion and fear. They had never seen their animals behave this way. Then, another video surfaced from Colombia. A group of hikers, recording their journey, stumbled upon a strange black residue bubbling along a riverbank. He was showing his compass spinning wildly, his boat engine sputtering and stalling for no reason. He panned the camera around to show the vast, empty ocean. But behind him, the water itself began to glow faintly with that same ghostly green pulse others had described. The live chat exploded with panic, viewers spamming warnings and questions. And then, abruptly, the stream cut to black. The connection was lost. It was no longer possible to dismiss these events as mere coincidence. The electromagnetic anomalies were real. The strange animal behaviors were real. And the sightings, they were growing, spreading like a contagion across Central and South America. The digital breadcrumbs were leading to a terrifying conclusion. Whatever was in Panama was now on the move. Behind the scenes, the corridors of power were buzzing. NATO intelligence reportedly classified the situation as priority review. This wasn't just a curiosity anymore, not just internet noise. This was now being analyzed as a potential threat. Across Europe and North America, military analysts began the painstaking work of connecting the dots. They looked at unexplained radar anomalies that had been logged over the North Sea in recent weeks. They cross-referenced communication disruptions near sensitive military bases, incidents previously written off as technical glitches. They tracked a sudden and sharp increase in unmarked transport flights moving between Central and South America. Their flight paths and cargo logs kept completely classified. Something big was happening, something coordinated. A web of activity was being woven in the shadows, far from public view. Whispers started to leak from the intelligence community. Whistleblowers claimed that high-level closed-door meetings were already underway. They spoke of contingency plans, of rapid deployment forces being put on standby, and they mentioned a phrase that, once it leaked to the press, spread like wildfire across the internet. Containment breach. Containment breach. Think about those words. Not a crash, not an accident, a breach. The implication was staggering. It suggested that this thing had already been trapped, perhaps for a very long time, and that it had already broken free. It recontextualized the entire event in Panama. Was the initial incident not a discovery, but an escape? The public, now armed with this terrifying new phrase, began demanding answers. But governments around the world remained stubbornly silent. Press briefings were canceled. Officials gave non-committal answers. The silence was deafening, and it only fueled the growing panic. But through that wall of official silence, one voice echoed. A single cryptic message was posted on Chin's abandoned channel, uploaded from an unknown, untraceable source. It contained just 3 words. Do not follow. No explanation, no context, just those 3 words, hanging there in the digital void. The world was left scrambling to understand. Follow what? Or, follow who? Was it a warning from Chin? A message from the entity itself? Or something else entirely? If you have any information or have seen anything unusual, share it in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any updates. Stay safe out there. The story did not die. It grew. By now, the black goo was no longer just a strange internet curiosity. It was a threat, At least, that's how governments began to treat it. Whispers leaked. Military aircraft spotted flying over remote Panamanian jungles. Satellite images showing temporary structures, tents, towers, floodlights. Why build such installations in a place where nothing should matter? And then, the disappearances. Villagers spoke of strangers in uniform, visiting towns late at night, collecting phones, warning people not to speak. Those who resisted were simply gone by morning. Still, the internet refused to forget. Screenshots, downloads, offline copies. Chin's videos were mirrored across hundreds of servers. Every attempt to erase them only made the story spread further. And what about Chin himself? At first, he continued posting, frantic, claiming he was being followed, that his devices were hacked, that men in black cars were waiting outside his home. But then, silence. No live streams, no updates. Just a final message. If they find me, tell the world. It's real. Some claim he was arrested. Others insist he fled Panama altogether. A few believe he was never real at all, just a digital ghost, a face invented to deliver a message no one else dared share. Meanwhile, the hazmat suits kept appearing. Not in Panama alone, but in other corners of the world. Argentina, Chile, even parts of Europe, always in places near strange meteors, always without explanation. Coincidence? Or the beginnings of a global cover-up? The media played its role. News outlets mocked the believers. Headlines laughed at Panama's alien goo. But behind the ridicule, something darker was at work. Stories vanished, witnesses silenced, videos taken down, and yet, the photograph remained. The suits, the building, the mystery, like a single burning ember refusing to go out. Because if the goo is real, if Chin was right, then the suits aren't protecting us. They're containing something we were never meant to see, something alive, something waiting. Hello, and welcome back to the channel. Tonight we re-venturing deep into the heart of a mystery that blurs the line between science fiction and a terrifying reality. It's a story that starts with whispers and ends in silence. It all leads us to one fundamental question. Not what the black goo is, but why it appeared here now in Panama. Because if you meticulously trace the sightings, the blurry photos of hazmat teams, the satellite images of sudden clandestine installations, the hushed rumors of people simply vanishing, a chilling pattern begins to emerge. The goo didn't just fall from the sky in a random meteor shower. It wasn't a natural phenomenon. When you connect all the dots, the inescapable conclusion is that it was placed. Deliberately. Now this is where the story takes a turn into the ancient past. Some researchers, often dismissed by the mainstream, are pointing to nearly forgotten myths from Central America. These aren't just campfire stories. They are intricate legends passed down through generations. Stories of a living darkness, a sentient shadow that was sealed away deep beneath the earth by the gods themselves. These legends speak of a substance that didn't just kill, but consumed, absorbing both flesh and spirit. They weren't just tales of monsters. They were warnings, a desperate plea from our ancestors not to awaken what should never, ever be touched. And yet, here we are. In our modern arrogance, we've done exactly that. We're touching it. We're studying it. We're trying to contain it. Or at least that's the official story we're being fed. The truth might be far more unsettling. Are we really containing it? Or are we just providing it with a temporary home, a petri dish before it decides to move out? The very idea that we can control something that ancient gods struggled to subdue is the height of hubris. The last piece of evidence that ever surfaced, believed to be from the missing researcher Chin, was only 17 seconds long. It's grainy, blurry, distorted by electronic interference. You can see a hand, shaking uncontrollably as it struggles to hold a camera steady. On the floor of what looks like a sterile lab, the black goo is spreading, not like a liquid, but like a predator claiming territory. And then, for just a fraction of a second, something impossible happens. A ripple disturbs the surface. A shape begins to form within the darkness. It's indistinct, but you can almost make out features. Like a face looking back at the camera, looking back at Chin. And then the recording cuts to static. Nothing after. Just silence. Of course, Skeptics immediately dismissed it. A clever hoax, they said. Digital manipulation. Others, those who have been following this story from the beginning, call it the terrifying proof they've been waiting for. But whether you choose to believe that haunting 17-second clip or not, the verifiable facts remain. There are authenticated photographs of hazmat teams operating in the Panamanian jungle where they have no official business. There is a meteorite fragment, held in a secure location, that exhibits properties unlike any mineral compound known to science. And there is a substance, this black goo, that under microscopic analysis appears to be alive. It reacts to stimuli. It seems to learn. And perhaps most unnerving of all, there is a trail of absolute silence that follows anyone who gets too close to the truth. Journalists who ask too many questions have their articles pulled. Scientists who presented anomalous findings have their funding cut. And people like Chin simply disappear. It's a perfectly orchestrated cover-up, designed to make the world look the other way. So, what are we supposed to do with this story? Do we laugh it off as just another internet conspiracy theory? Do we dismiss it as collective paranoia, a modern-day ghost story for the digital age? Or do we dare to ask the one question that nobody in a position of power seems willing to answer? If the goo is real, and it's not from here, then where is it from? And more importantly, the question that should keep you up at night: what does it want? Because here's a thought that goes beyond the typical alien invasion narrative. Maybe the black goo isn't an invader at all. Maybe it's a message, a cosmic warning sent across the stars. Or, and this is far more disturbing, maybe it's a seed, planted in our world's fertile soil, quietly biding its time, waiting for the right conditions to grow. And when it does, when the hazmat suits inevitably fail, when the state-of-the-art containment inevitably breaks, when the living darkness finally spills out from its temporary prison, the world won't be asking if Chin was right. The world will be asking something far, far more terrifying. How long do we have left? Think about it. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the unknown. If these are the kinds of questions you like to explore, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you do not miss our next investigation. Until next time, stay curious and question everything.